Hi everyone, welcome to the channel where you get smart, not baited. I'm Lukim and today we're going to be talking about skill damage. Why do you ask? Well, because YouTube is currently full of clickbait, misinformation, and a whole lot of nonsense. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how skill damage works, how the numbers in your reactor become damage. I'll give you one easy way to decide whether to increase skill power or skill power modifier. That way, you're not going around chasing for a bunch of stuff that you don't actually need in order to have a good build. Before we get started, here's a quick showcase of my upcoming build video. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss it. And for this, we're going to be at the lab with Lepic and our two volunteers, Slayer and Slaughter, and we're going to start up by talking about our character screen. To keep things simple, I've taken out all my external components and all of my mods. Our reactor is going to have a base kill power based on the level. In this case, it's 11,724.62. This does not depend on the rarity of the reactor, it only depends on the level. So whether it's a gold reactor or a purple reactor or a blue reactor, that base kill power will be the same no matter what except the level. I've put together a spreadsheet so that I can put in all these values that we're going over so that we can keep track of everything and double check that everything that I'm saying makes sense, and so that you can visualize the impact of the different mods and skill power modifier. So again, we're going to be starting with 11,724.62, and here's that base reactor power. Next, we have our optimization condition. This optimization condition has to do with the weapon. If you're talking about a golden reactor, that means that the weapon has to be in hand, but if it's a purple reactor, you just have to have the weapon equipped. So what does that mean? Right now, I'm holding a Zestra's Devotion, and because I'm holding a Zestra's Devotion, I do not have the optimization condition met. That means that I do not get the 160% skill power, whereas if I go ahead and equip Clairvoyance, so I'm going to go over here, equip Clairvoyance, go back to the character screen and take a look. Now I am meeting the condition. Now if that was a purple reactor, that would not matter. For example, if I go over here and just equip this reactor, it says I need to have a machine gun equipped. You can see that the optimization condition is met even though I'm holding Clairvoyance, which is not a machine gun. So let me go ahead and put my auto reactor back on. Now your optimized skill power is going to show down here where I see 18,759.39. So this is the base power times the 160%. Let's look at the spreadsheet again. And here you go, we have 160%, and there is our optimized skill power. Next, we have our skill power boost ratio. That's going to depend on the skills you have. So for Lepic, he does have fire skills, and he does have tech skills. So he'll get an additional 20% skill power to each one of those skills. And if a skill is both fire and tech, you will actually get both bonuses. That's why when we look towards the bottom where it says skill power when equipped, we'll see that our skills that are both fire and tech will have a higher base skill power than the ones that are fire and singular. So as you can see, our grenade ability has a base skill power of 28,746.89, whereas our overclock has a base skill power of 22,511.27. Now keep in mind that if your additional perks all the way at the bottom have any additional skill power boost, this number will be reflecting the skill power shown above. So 28,746.89 includes the 7.7% additional perk that's at the bottom of the reactor. Going back to our spreadsheet, you can see that in here, we have the additional fire skill power of 20%, the additional tech skill power boost of 20%, and the additional tech skill power boost of 7.7%, giving us a base tech skill power of 28,746.89 and a base singular skill power of 22,511.27. Note that if you look at the formula bar, all of these numbers down here are calculated and match exactly what is shown in game. For the math nerds out there like me, the way that this calculation works is you take this number over here, which is your optimized skill power, times 1 plus the total fire skill power boost, which in this case is 20%, plus 1 times the total tech skill power boost, which is 20 plus 7.7%. So this means that when we use our grenade, it's going to have a base skill power of 28,746.89, which is the number that goes into skill power when you look at the information for the skill where it says skill power. So with that, you should now have a perfect understanding of how the reactor works. Now let's do some base tests just to confirm that all of this is the case and to get some base values for the rest of the demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Slayer with a grenade. He had a damage of 156,201. So I went ahead and entered that number over here, 156,201. I have also entered the skill power modifier of the skill over here, which is 585.4%. Now, if we were to just calculate the damage straight through, we would expect a damage of 168,284.31. But what we did see, again, was the 156,201. What this means is that Slayer has a base defense of 7.18%. This is going to be very important as we continue testing everything else. Now, the first thing that I'm going to go over is actually going to be skill power modifier, because this is the one that most people seem to be the most confused about. And it's the one that is leading to a lot of clickbait videos out there and builds that are terribly optimized. So I'm going to go ahead and add focus on tacking here. What this does is give an additional 68.2% skill power modifier. Now, you may be thinking that this is somehow going to increase the damage of your skill by 68.2%. That will almost never happen unless the base skill power modifier of the skill is exactly 100%. In the case of the grenade, the base skill power modifier is 585.4%. So what this means is that skill power modifier is going to be somewhat insignificant compared to what you might be expecting. So we're going to go back to the spreadsheet and enter the stats for that. I'm just literally going to copy the information that's over here. So it's saying that tech skill power modifier is increased by 68.2%. So here we go. We have tech skill power modifier of 68.2%. So what this is saying is that it expects the final damage on Slayer to be 174,399 after you factor in the 7.18% defense that Slayer has. So let's see if that's actually the case. There we go, 174,399, just as expected. Now, if you look at the damage increase, it actually only increased by a total of 11.65%. Now, you may be asking, how come the tech skill power modifier is 68.2%? How come you only increase the damage by 11.65%? Well, 11.65% represents the impact that 68.2% has on 585.4%. So if you take 68.2 and divide by 585.4, you get exactly 11.65%. And this is how you can tell exactly how much your skill power modifier is going to impact your actual damage. Just calculate how much the skill power modifier compares to the base skill power modifier of the skill by dividing the skill power modifier that you're adding by the skill power modifier of the skill. So for example, if we look at a different skill, so if we look at Overkill, which has a base skill power modifier of 2,760.3%, let's go back to the spreadsheet. Ignore the section over here because the base damage here is not the damage for Overkill, so these numbers are not correct. With a base skill power modifier of 2,760.3%, adding 68.2% skill power modifier only would have an impact of 2.47% on the damage of the skill. So this is basically having virtually zero impact on the base damage of Overkill. Now, to be fair, if you look at the continuous damage of Overkill, it only has a base 43.8%. So if we put that here, we would see the continuous damage going up by 155.71%. But remember, the bulk of the damage being done by Overkill is not coming from the damage over time, it's coming from the base damage. So overall, skill power modifier is not going to be super great for overkill. Now let's go back to our grenade values. Now this would probably be a good time to point out a current bug in the game. So when we look at our skill description, it does not reflect the 68.2% skill power modifier that we have equipped. For comparison, if I take out focus on tech and equip maximize power, which also increases skill power modifier, and take a look at the skill description, it does reflect the skill power modifier change. This can be a big problem because it does not show any kind of skill power modifier that is only being applied to stuff like text, singular, and etc. So do keep that in mind. And Nexon, if you watch this, please fix it. Now, by comparison, when you add skill power directly, it will have a direct impact on the damage of the skill. So for example, if I equip Fire Specialist, even a base one, with just plus 20% fire skill power, so here we have the stats updated to say 20% for fire skill power, and you can see that with a level 1 Fire Specialist, our total damage has actually gone up by 16.67%, which is substantially more than a fully maxed out focus on tech. So let's see if the damage matches in game. Oh, that was a crit. Oh, 182, 235, just as expected. So now, for comparison, let's put in a fully maxed out Fire Specialist. So we're getting an 81.2% fire skill power. So we're expecting 261,898. $261,897. So wow, we're off by 1. The point is that with a fully maxed out Fire Specialist, our damage went out by 67.67%. That is way more than Focus on Tech that only gave us 11.65. The reason being, again, because the skill has such a high base skill power modifier. So the impact of adding additional skill power modifier is almost insignificant. Now, does that mean that I shouldn't use both of them then? Why don't I just use both? Well, you definitely can use both skill power modifier and skill power, but there may be better things that you can do first. So for example, in this case, because the skill power modifier is already so high, you would probably be much better off focusing on critical chance instead. So you'd be much better off adding something like skill concentration and skill insight, and then if you have enough room left, then and only then would you add additional skill power modifier if you're planning to use mainly the grenade skill. Or if you don't want to go for crit, you may want to use something like Spear and Shield, because that's going to give you an additional 8% skill power, which is also going to have a much bigger impact than adding skill power modifier. So for just the cost of 6 from Spear and Shield, if I add the 8.1% to the spreadsheet, 8.1, you can see that our total damage goes up to 81.25%, though of course, again, that only applies to this specific skill based on the base skill power modifier. Now, by comparison, a fully maxed out Focus on Tech combined with Fire Specialist will take our final damage increase from 67.67 all the way to 87.2%. By comparison, Spear and Shield with just level 1 at 8.1% will take our damage all the way to 81.25%. Yes, the Focus on Tech will do a little bit better, but you're going to spend 10 more capacity to get that benefit. So you're much better off just using Spear and Shield. With Spear and Shield, you're basically getting 2.26% total additional damage per capacity used, where with the skill power modifier from Focus on Tech, you're only getting 1.22% per capacity used. And just again, to double check that my numbers here are right, according to this, it says that if I use both Fire Specialist and Focus on Tech, I should be expecting 292,409 damage. And let's see what we get. 292,409 damage. Exactly what we're expecting. And then just to double check the damage for Spear and Shield, we're expecting 283, 111. There you go, 283, 111, just as expected. Now, some of you may be asking, how do external component sets impact the total skill damage when they give a bonus, like for example the Slayer set, which gives an additional 26.1% skill power. They basically work exactly as though you're equipping a mod in here that gave the additional 26.1. And the way that we can test this is by looking at the spreadsheet again. If I add the 26.1% here, we're expecting a total damage of 351,466. So let's go ahead and test it. There you go, 351,466. So if you look at the way that it works, is that 26.1 essentially gets added to the 8.1, which translates to 34.2%. Now, you may be asking yourself, do I need to have a whole spreadsheet to do all this? You definitely do not. All the information necessary is going to be right on your character screen as well. So for example, right now I have Fire Specialist, Focus on Tech, Spear and Shield, plus the Slayer set. And if I just press the Go to Info on this screen, we'll see all of the relevant stats right here. So let's compare to the spreadsheet. We have 34.2% base skill power. So that's right here. That's coming from the set and Spear and Shield. We have 101.2% fire skill power boost ratio. That's right here. It's coming from the Reactor and from Fire Specialist. We have 27.7% tech skill power boost ratio. That's all coming from the Reactor. And then we have 68.2% tech skill power modifier, which is coming from Focus on Tech, and that's right here. So you can look right at the screen to see all the information relevant to get the total impact of your build on all of your skill damage. For all the math nerds like me out there, and for those of you that want to fully optimize your builds, the way that the calculation works to calculate the final damage is the base skill power, which is going to be this right here, which is the optimized skill power, depending on whether you have the weapon from the Reactor equipped or not, times 1 plus the base skill power boost ratio, times 1 plus the fire skill power boost ratio, times 1 plus the tech skill power boost ratio. That's going to be your base damage. And then whatever the relevant skill modifier is in here, in this case a stack, you would add that whatever shows on the mod screen, at least until Nexon fixes the bug where this does not get properly applied to the mod screen. So again, if we go here and take a look, this is not showing the tech skill power modifier of 68.2%. So you have to remember to apply that if you have it. And again, just to double check that all the calculations I have here are correct, based on what we have here and the values that we have here, they all match my numbers here. We're expecting 392,413 damage. 392, 413, just as expected. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, drop a like. Make sure to leave a comment below if you have any ideas or thoughts. And you can always join me on Discord or on Twitch.